Xmithie has been benched from the IMT roster, and it just goes to show how mortals don't even know how to use their best player. So he's been benched, as some have speculated that he has lost motivation or maybe he's playing other games, etc. But then a report from ESPN came out essentially saying, from the general manager having a quote, to where they were trying to field the best roster and that the roster is very fluid and based on team performance within scrims and whatnot. This was the best roster that they thought they could field for week one. Just a whole bunch of PR shit, basically. And so Potluck took his place and has not looked that great. But let's not entirely blame him, because IMT's whole performance was pretty fucking atrocious. I mean, you have a top laner who can't even build the fucking correct items on Karma and missing fucking Athene's Holy Grail, which is one of the main reasons as to why you even play that champion in the top lane, and you don't even get an advantage in the top lane anyways with the poke champion. And then you have a fucking subpar mid laner who can't hold his own in the mid lane, clearly, a forgettable ADC, and a support who shouldn't even be fucking playing in the game over Hakuho anyways. So this entire roster is just a complete shit show, and the main criticism for this team since fucking day one, when the roster was announced back in the spring split, was that they lack firepower. Right? They lack someone that would be a hard carry. And it's very clear, right? When you look at the names on the roster on paper, you can see that there really isn't any carry, especially when you fucking sub out Apollo for Altec and you sub out Hakuho for Gate, which I think is even more egregious. And so now you misuse your best fucking player with your jungler and you sub them out. Now, the reason why I say that you misuse or maybe misinterpret Xmithie's strengths is because Xmithie's strengths, his greatest strengths, are that he is the fucking king of counter jungling. I would even go as to say he is the best counter jungler within North America, even fucking better than Blabber. Now, I'm not saying that Blabber has a million other things that he's better at than Xmithie, right? Which makes him a better jungler overall. But Xmithie is a very good counter ganker. He knows exactly where the enemy jungler is at any given time whatsoever, even without the mid or bot lane push or priority to get deep vision. He knows almost instinctively where the enemy jungler is at all times. And so it's weird to then go on to blame Xmithie's almost patented style and sub him out, even though he's actually looked far more aggressive in his recent years. I don't give a fuck what any fans say. I think he's certainly stepped up his aggressive game in terms of he's willing to take over games if he is in the right position. That's not to say that he demands resources or whatnot. He's a pretty selfish jungler, as it were. But if he happens to gain all these resources through one thing or another, maybe he catches the enemy jungler out or whatnot, he will take over the game, given those conditions. And then specifically when he joined IMT way back in the day, right? This was like 2016, long time ago. Was that he did take over games. He fucking stomped people on Graves. He counter jungled people, and he just could solo take over the game entirely. Now, albeit that was with better laners, but that comes with the territory of being a jungler. So unless Potluck is this hyper aggressive, like almost Blabber type shit, I see no reason to sub out Xmithie, because it's clearly that you've made your entire team worse, both on paper and from actual performance itself. Now, Xmithie has always been this voice of reason within his teams, which is the additional factor that you get when you have Xmithie on your team, is that it's not to say that he's this super big shot caller or whatnot, but he is this voice of reason, telling teammates not to go for these dumb plays or these dumb trades, and challenging the most vocal players on his teams, and overall just keeping the team very level-headed in a sense. You could hear this in both his old comms, the thing that Riot used to do back in the day, the mic check, along with Doublelift literally saying in interviews in the past when they were both on Team Liquid that he would be challenged by Xmithie a lot in team discussions and just theory on how to play the game. So it's very clear that Xmithie is like this voice of reason person that can both challenge the most vocal person, and then also at the same time in game say things to calm his teammates down, or maybe not go for a play when he's on the other side of the map and whatnot. So all of Xmithie's playstyles, I guess it's even more indicative by TSM fans saying that TSM should pick him up, which I don't think Xmithie would ever join that team. But given his just selfless playstyle a lot of the times, which clearly isn't suited for IMT, but funnily enough, he's the most aggressive player on IMT by far anyways. And that tells you in and of itself that maybe you've constructed your team incorrectly. And I just think IMT's GM is a fucking joke and had no clue what he was doing when he constructed this entire roster. I think any analyst worth his or her salt, or any other GM, I guess, for that matter, worth their salt, would realize that Xmithie is not this super hardcore carry player, and that you need him to be surrounded by other players as such. The team is essentially Xmithie being super well paid, and then you have this top laner being decently paid as well too because of his name and his legacy, and then you have these bottom feeders for the rest of the entire team. So who the fuck is gonna carry for this team? Soaz isn't a carry type player. I don't give a fuck what anyone says. He is a very selfless top laner, and although he has had maybe some carry instances in the past, that's not the norm for Soaz, as it were anyways. It's clearly not his comfortable style. He's more of the sacrificial top laner, as it were, and as we saw with him playing Karma top lane anyways, right? So it's just strange that IMT can't get this shit together. They see the things on paper, and yet they ignored all the signs anyways, and then they end up subbing out the best piece within their entire roster and expect it to work out, expect some fucking magic to happen somehow. Even all the statistics point towards the other fucking way anyways. They are just essentially shooting darts at a fucking dartboard, hoping that something lands on the bullseye. And so that in itself can actually show you the incompetence of Immortals and the fact that they have perennially, I guess, misused Xmithie until this very day itself. And it's very evident that they have no idea what the fuck they're actually doing.